In 2025, you do not need a computer science degree to build automations that you can sell for thousands and thousands of dollars. I've been working as an automation consultant for quite some time now, and I promise you that you do not need to be an AI wizard or an automation expert or even a developer to build automations that will leave everyone impressed. All you need is to know how to leverage one very specific piece of software and also train one very specific, very important skill that will make you the most powerful person in the room. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that is, so stay tuned. Now let's not waste any more time and get right into it. Now, if I wanted to make a list of all the different tips and tricks and hacks that I have building automations for a living, I would have one hack so far above everything else, it's actually crazy. And that hack isn't some insane formula that I've come up with because I'm a super tech genius. That hack is literally just using one singular piece of software. And that software is nothing but Perplexity. So I get it. You're probably thinking right now, bro, you G'd us up this much saying you're going to give out all these crazy secret hacks away, and now you're talking about Perplexity. Of course we all know about Perplexity. And that's a fair point to make, but I guarantee you that no one uses Perplexity like I do. A lot of people just see Perplexity as a research tool where you can search things up and it will search the web and give you answers. But what people don't actually know is that Perplexity is an insane tech support tool. So if you're a developer out there, or if you're building automations, or if you're somehow in the tech space, I guarantee you get on Perplexity straight away and start using it to fulfill your tasks on a day by day. Let's say you were just approached by a new client that spends a lot of time every day uploading leads to their HubSpot CRM one by one. And so they've approached you asking if you can automate that process. Well, what 99% of other developers will do is they'll go on Google and search up HubSpot API documentation, because they want to make sure that you can indeed use an API to upload new leads into your HubSpot CRM. So once they search that up on Google, they'll find the HubSpot API documentation, and then they'll start reading line by line. Okay, well, this is the general schema of the HubSpot API. These are the different things we can do. So we probably want to go to CRM, and then we want to read each of these and understand whether it is feasible or if it is not feasible to actually try and upload leads to HubSpot via API. But is this really the most efficient way to do it? Well, the answer is no. What I do, instead of reading pages and pages of API documentation, is I literally just ask Perplexity, can you upload leads into HubSpot as new contacts via API on n8n? Send that through. And just like that, I have my answer. Yes, you can upload leads to HubSpot via their API, specifically by using their contacts API endpoint. But that's not the craziest part. Let's say if I were to go and build out this whole workflow on n8n right now, what I want to do is I want to add a HTTP request node so I can actually make that API request to HubSpot. So I'll search up HTTP requests, and as you can see, this node comes up that requires a bunch of information in order for us to be able to send that request over to HubSpot. Like the URL that defines which endpoint of which software we want to use, and a bunch of different parameters like query parameters, headers, and body. Well, again, traditionally what developers would do is they'll come to the API documentation, they'll read through it, they'll try find the contacts section, and then they'll grab the information that's required to be sent through with that API request, and then they'll come and fill out the actual HTTP request. But again, what I do is I come back to Perplexity, I change it over to its reasoning model, and I ask it exactly how I'm meant to send that API request. So I say I want to upload a new lead as a contact to my HubSpot CRM in n8n. Give me the exact curl request to do this. Then again, what Perplexity is going to do is it's going to research a bunch of links online, including HubSpot's API documentation, and then it's going to think about that information and provide me with the exact curl request I can copy and paste into n8n to send that API request over. So literally all I have to do is click on copy to clipboard, come back to n8n, click on import curl and paste it in, then click on import. And literally just like that, my entire HTTP request node is pre-populated with all the different parameters I need to send, and the URL is even defined. So literally in this instance, to complete this API request, all I have to do is provide it with my actual API key, which is literally just replacing this variable that says your access token, and then giving it all the different pieces of information that I want to send over for that lead, including the lead's email, which is lead@example.com. I'll replace that with, let's say, kia@chemexa.ai. The lead's first name, the lead's last name, the lead's phone number, company, and website. So literally as easy as that, I was able to send the API request that I wanted over to HubSpot to achieve the objective that I had in mind. Now, the example with HubSpot might have seemed trivial to you because, of course, HubSpot's going to have API documentation to be able to upload leads as contacts into their CRM. But once you're working with softwares that are a little bit less known and a little bit more vague in terms of the API documentation that you have, using Perplexity saves you a ton of time. Honestly, it's crazy how much time it saves you. Now, the second hack that I have is also a continuation of the first hack. Every time you receive a new client project, the first thing that you should be doing before anything else is trying to map out a very preliminary version of that process on paper and then trying to understand whether it's actually technically feasible to build this automation or not. So let's say, for example, I want to create my call research tool automation, which will create a full research report about every single person that books a consultation with me and sends that email over to me prior to a consultation. I wouldn't jump into n8n straight away and just start putting nodes together. What I'll usually do is I'll open up a new page on my book and I'll write down the overall objective of what we're trying to achieve. So in this case, we're trying to send an email with a research report. And then I'll also define what the input of this workflow will be. So the input of this workflow will be that a new person books a new call with us. So in this instance, let's say it's a Calendly trigger. And then now that I know what the input is and what the output is, I've just got to figure out a way to turn this input into that output. Now, instead of jumping straight in and trying to say, okay, well, this is the Calendly trigger, and then the Calendly trigger is going to go to this place, and it's going to go to this place, and it's going to go to this place, what I actually do is I make a very broad overview of that workflow. So in this instance, we said the input's this and the output's this. Well, the Calendly trigger is going to come in, and then what's going to happen is we're going to do a bunch of research. So research is a very broad term, and there's a lot of different steps inside research, but at this point, we just care about that overall step, which is research. And then after we do the research, what we want to do is we want to analyze that research. So that's the next step. And then once we've analyzed that research, we want to be able to put it in a report format. And then once we have the report format, we will then send it off as an email to myself. So as you can see, I've broken down this somewhat complex automation to 4 simple sections: the trigger, the research, the analysis, the creation of the report, and then the emailing of the actual report. Okay, now coming back to our workflow, what you want to do next is break down each of these steps to all of their smaller sub-steps. So for example, in the case of research, we want to research their LinkedIn account, we want to research their website, we want to research their Google reviews, and we want to research any other thing. And then in terms of analysis, we might want to look at their pain points, we might want to look at sales opportunities, or we might want to look at any other thing. And then in terms of report, we want to be able to aggregate everything together into one report. And then in terms of email, we just want to be able to send that email. So now looking at this workflow, we have all of these sub-steps that we have to achieve in order to go from the input to the output. So the next thing that I do here is I go through all of these smaller sub-steps and I test whether achieving them is technically feasible on n8n or not. So for example, in the case of researching someone on LinkedIn, I know that this is definitely possible. There's a lot of different apps and tools on Appify and other platforms that are similar that allow you to scrape people's LinkedIn. And in terms of website research, well, that's just the standard scraper. But in terms of Google reviews, this is a slightly more complex one. I'm not really sure if we can scrape someone's Google reviews or not. Well, guess what? Instead of me going and searching through all these different platforms and all these different Reddit posts trying to understand whether I can or cannot scrape someone's Google review post, I'll literally just ask Perplexity. So coming back to Perplexity, I will change the model over to the Pro model, and then I'll just ask it the question: can I scrape businesses' Google reviews via API request? If so, which tool is best? And what should I consider when deciding to do this? So let's send that through. As you can see, Perplexity is going to do a bunch of research online, going through different Reddit posts and different websites. It's even going to look through platforms like Appify and SERP API. And then after looking through 44 different sources, it's going to say that yes, you can indeed scrape Google reviews via API. And then it's going to tell me exactly what the best tools for scraping these Google reviews are. So in this instance, there's these different platforms here that offer a solution to this problem. And then another thing that I obviously care about if I'm I'm going to do this for a client is the legality of it. And Perplexity is going to tell me exactly what the legality of doing this would actually be. And then all I literally have to do is just repeat the same process for all the other subtasks, asking myself whether doing each of these subtasks is technically feasible or not. And if I don't know the answer, I'll just go and ask Perplexity. And that's exactly how I save a lot of time every single day when building out client projects. And so let's say you're a complete newbie to tech and you have no clue about any of the crazy tech terms that us automation experts throw out there. You can literally just ask Perplexity to tell you what the requirements are and then feed those requirements back into Perplexity so it can go and do the research and tech feasibility for you, and then ask Perplexity to tell you exactly how to implement each of them on n8n. It's literally crazy. I reckon someone needs to go and build a Perplexity AI agent that not only researches, but can actually build out these workflows on n8n as well. And that, my friends, would be the day that I would no longer have a job. But anyways, let's get back into n8n. Let's say if we're working with a workflow that is pulling a bunch of rows from an Excel sheet as different items. So in this instance, you can see that it's pulling a bunch of blog posts from an Excel sheet that I've defined, which is related to my SEO posting. And the Excel sheet has all of these different pieces of information. Now, as you can see, there's about 43 different items or 43 different blog posts that was pulled in. So let's say, for example, in my use case, I know that I don't want to have all of this different piece of information for each blog post. What I actually need in order to continue on with the automation is to only keep blog posts that have a row number that's even. And then from those blog posts with the even row number, I want to only have one parameter, and that parameter should be the combination of summary and keywords. So let's say parameter A, and parameter A has to have the value or the string keyword directly followed by summary. So that's what I want to keep. I want to keep only the blogs with an even row number, and I want to only have one value, which is the combination of keyword and summary. Now, if you guys have experience with n8n, you know that doing this specific task is not very hard to achieve with the different data transformation nodes that n8n gives you access to. But let's say, for example, in scenarios where you're either new to n8n or the data transformation itself is extremely complex and you don't know how to achieve it with the different nodes that n8n gives you, what you'd want to do is set up a code node that will do that transformation for you. So basically just clicking on code and then setting up a bit of custom code that's going to allow you to achieve that data transformation in one go. Now, n8n has this built-in feature called Ask AI, which basically allows you to ask AI how to write that piece of code. But honestly, 9 out of 10 times when I use it, it doesn't work. So I don't know what you guys are doing in n8n. Come on, fix it. So you're probably not going to be able to use this every single time. So then what should you do if you have no coding experience and you don't actually know how to write the code for this? Should you go and spend $50,000 on a computer science degree to go and learn how to code and then come back and actually code this out? Well, of course not. In 2025, coding is obsolete, and I'll say it again and again. There is no point learning how to code. All you have to learn is how to write a good prompt. So with that being said, what I usually do is I open up 3 tabs on my browser. Number 1, I open up ChatGPT for o3 mini. Number 2, I open up Anthropic and I choose Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking. And then number 3, I open up Grok and I choose the Grok 3 model Thinking. And then I'll just ask for it to write the code for me. Now, if you guys don't have a subscription to any of these platforms, well, Grok 3 is completely free at the moment, so you can use Grok. In terms of Anthropic, Claude 3.7 Sonnet Thinking, and ChatGPT's o3 Mini High, you don't have to actually have a subscription to the platform to be able to use these higher end models. All you have to do is just go to the developer end of these platforms and then put a little bit of credits in and pay per use or pay per prompt or per message that you send through. So in ChatGPT, that would be in platform.openai.com/playground/prompts. And for Anthropic, that would be in console.anthropic.com/workbench. And then I'll just write out the prompt. And when it comes to writing out the prompt, there's a very specific structure that I follow every single time. So inside every single prompt, I first start with some context as to exactly what I'm doing. So I always say I'm building a workflow on n8n to do a certain thing. So in this scenario, we're manipulating my previous blog post. And then once I've given the model context so it knows exactly what's going on, I give it an example of the actual data that it has to manipulate. So I say that one of the nodes in my workflow is called node A, and this node contains each of my previous blogs as separate items. And then I give it the actual example of the data that's currently inside that node. So if you take a look over here, we have row number 2, row number 3, row number 4, row number 5, 6, 7, and that's it. I didn't actually give it access to all 43 different items inside this actual node. And it's very important you don't do that either if you've got a lot of data that sits inside that specific node, because the bigger the prompt gets, the more amount of tokens or words that are inside the prompt, the less accurate your model becomes. So usually what you should do is just get a couple of examples of that actual data so you can explain the structure of that data to the large language model. So let's say in the case that your node had multiple items inside it and each item had the parameters A, B, C, and D, you don't need to give it access to all that data. You just need to give it access to one or two instances of these items so the large language model knows what parameters is inside each actual item and what sort of value is usually inside that parameter. And then what you have to do is you have to give the model an objective as to exactly what it's trying to achieve from that code. So I usually use JavaScript, and in my prompts, it usually starts with write JS code to achieve these certain conditions. So the conditions are, number one, only keep the blogs or items that have an even row number. And then number two, combine the value of keywords and summary parameters into one parameter with the following structure. So that combined parameter is going to be called parameter A, and the structure is going to be keywords and summary. And then to solidify the fact that the model actually knows exactly what it's meant to achieve, I give it an example of what the perfect output would be. So I say that the first two items that you'd get from the above set of data points that I gave you would be row number 2 and row number 4, and the actual value would be the keywords followed by followed by the summary, and then again the keywords followed by and followed by the summary. So that by adding this example, I'm 100% certain the model knows exactly what it's meant to do. And then usually I leave at least one specific rule that the AI model should always follow, because they usually get this wrong. I say that the data in the nodes is variable, so you must always pull it from the node instead of hard coding it. Because a lot of times when you ask AI to write code for you, what it will do is first it will define that bit of data. So I'll say, this is a certain constant or a certain variable, and this is the values of that actual variable, which is the values that I gave it up here. And then it tries to manipulate this actual variable. But what we want is for the AI model to go and actually pull that data from that previous node dynamically instead of actually hard coding it. And so we usually have to tell it that this is what we're trying to achieve in the actual prompt itself. Now, to make this even easier for you guys, I'm going to give you access to a template that you can use every single time you write a prompt. So if you guys want to download that template, I will give you access via a link in the description down below to my free Skool community, where it will be listed inside the YouTube resources section. So just look for the video that has the same name as this video, and then download the template directly from that post just by clicking on the actual resource itself. Now, I've only recently launched my free Skool community and I want to get it to 10,000 members. We have different fun competitions. We have a full classroom section where I give you guys access to a course that will take you through AI fundamentals, AI agents, n8n, and even access to my best YouTube automation templates. So I'd love to see you guys in there, but anyways, let's get back to the video. So now that I've got the prompt set out, I will copy the prompt and paste it into Grok and also paste it into ChatGPT. And I'll let all three of them run simultaneously. So I'll just click on enter, go here, also click on enter, and then I'll go here and I'll also click on enter. And now all I have to do is just wait a couple of seconds and let AI do all the magic for me. So it's been about a minute and all three platforms now have an answer. The one that thought for the longest was Grok, which thought for about 70 seconds, whereas Claude and ChatGPT both thought for about 20 to 25 seconds. Now, usually what I do next is I copy and paste each of them individually until one of them achieves the objective that I set it out to achieve. So let's start with ChatGPT. I'll click on copy, go to my workflow, click on the code, and then replace it with the actual code. Now, as you guys can see, ChatGPT didn't do a great job with actually pulling the information from that specific node. So I'm not very happy with the code that ChatGPT gave me. So I'm just gonna delete this one. Now, looking at Anthropic, you can see that Anthropic actually made an effort to pull that information from that node. So let's try Anthropic's code. Pasting it in here, click on test step, and then it comes back with reference node, node A doesn't actually exist, which is true because I told the model that the node is called node A, whereas it's actually called Google Sheets. It's a bad habit that I have, but if you guys are bothered, put the actual node names in. So I'll just replace it with Google Sheets and let's see if this one works now. So as you can see, it comes back with an error saying items.filter is not a function. So unfortunately, this one didn't work. And so I will remove this code, go back to Grok 3 and try and copy in Grok's code. Let's hope Grok got the right code, or else we're going to have to try and change the prompt and iterate. So testing Grok's code, as you can see, as simple as that, Grok actually got the right answer. So we don't need to go back and change the prompt. Now, the reality of the matter is a lot of times you're not going to get the perfect prompt straight away. So you would have to probably go back and change that prompt slightly until you eventually get the right piece of code that's going to be able to achieve that objective. But I guarantee you, in almost every single scenario that you have, you do not need to know how to actually code or even understand that actual code itself. All you need to do is just to be able to write the perfect prompt, then put it in different models and have the patience to iterate until eventually you get the right piece of code that achieves the objective. And that's all for this video. As I said, in 2025, you do not need to know how to code to be in the tech space. You do not need to know how to code to be an automation expert. You do not need to know how to code to make money from AI and automation. All you need to do is know what softwares you have to use and know how to write the perfect prompt. I promise you, if you can do those two things and you have the patience to iterate with your prompts, you'll be able to build automations that you can sell for thousands and thousands of dollars. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you guys found this video useful, I would really appreciate it if you guys like and subscribe. It really helps push my content to the top of the algorithm, which in turn motivates me to make more and more of these videos. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.